Good morning, everyone. This is Albert. I was just sitting here thinking about my neighbors that lived up the street from me when I was young. And he had the nicest house on the block. He had everything we could ever imagine, from the good tennis shoes to the nice car, you name it. They had everything. They went and remodeled the house, and the yard was nice. And I was thinking, maybe those people never had any problems. But the truth is, they were just like you and I. They had problems too. I want you to check this out. We put something together special for you today. I want you to take a look at it, and then we'll talk a little bit more in a few moments.
I'm in debt. I have 2 car payments, 4 years into a 30-year mortgage, balances on a couple credit cards, plus college for 3 kids on the horizon. 0 savings. I work long hours at a job that I hate, and despite all that, all I get is stress about how I can make more money. I take 4 pills at night for my back pain. Some days, getting up seems like too much. I struggle with dyslexia, I have high cholesterol, I overeat a little too often. I'm trying to get in shape, but it's never, never enough. My dad died 5 years ago from cancer. I should have seen him more before he passed. Man, I miss him so much. Everyone expects me to be over it, but it's something that I still deal with daily. I haven't taken my wife on a date in 4 months. I practically forgot our anniversary. My kids need me when I get home, but it's late. I want to sleep. I spend my weekends at their functions, as if that's enough. All this, and I still resent my family, because I have no time just for me! I can be amazingly selfish. I'm often angry, seemingly for no reason. I struggle with lustful thoughts, none of which my wife understands. Nor do I, for that matter. I'm good at some things, I'm great at nothing. I had dreams for my work and my family, and I abandoned them long ago. I think I'm a realist, and I come off as a pessimist. I feel restless knowing something is missing. I have too many burdens. They're suffocating. And this is the weight I carry.
Wow, did you enjoy that video? That poor brother lists a lot of different issues, didn't he? From dyslexia to problems on his job. I mean, he talked about everything. That young man, that friend of mine, as I stated before the video, had a nice house, had cars. I mean, they had everything you can imagine. Designer jeans and even powerful designer shoes. They had it all. But do you know the reason they obtained that wealth was because his father was involved in a major car accident. And because of that, they were awarded numerous money. But at the same time, his father couldn't do the same things that he used to do. You see, his father suffered during the car accident, even though they had great wealth. At the same time, they lost a lot. You have to be careful about choosing things, like looking at people and saying how wealthy they are and how great they are without knowing the truth. Sometimes the enemy uses things like the list that our dear brother gave us. He might use jealousy and strife. He might use shame and all these things to hinder us from being the best that we can be. I was noticing in Philippians, the 11th chapter, Paul gave us 3 things I want you to consider today. The first thing he talked about was being content. He says in verse 11 that out of all these things, when he was going through rough times, that he learned to be content. Be content in the things of God. That's the foundation of you and I finding peace and joy. No matter what we're going through, if we can learn to be content, we'll begin the secret of the road to success. You see, even if you are going through something like a disease or something like that, remember, you're still in the land of the living. Even if you have no money in the bank, God is still blessing you with a great sunny day. What I'm trying to teach you is the beginning of this, we've got to understand the purpose of being content. Because to reach full joy, number one, we have to start off with being content. The second thing Paul talks about is being flexible. He says, for I have abound and I have abased. In other words, I've been through a lot and I have been through times where I didn't have anything. In other words, he had good times and bad times. But through it all, he learned to be, number two, flexible. Because if you can be flexible when things come, it's okay. Because you can be flexible and understanding that through whatever comes, God can bring you out. In other words, you can also be at a position when hard times come, because of the right perspective, you can actually have peace and joy through whatever you're going through. If you obtain the right perspective and become flexible, God can use you no matter what you're going through. And finally, in verse 13, I love this verse. It says that I can do all things through Christ. In other words, if you believe in God, if you believe and walk right and have faith that God can bring you through, you can do anything. Number one, you must be content. Be content in who you are. Be content in whose you are. And number two, be flexible, making sure you have the right perspective. And finally, believe in God, because when you believe in God, you'll understand that you can do all things through Christ. So when you're going through something, you can be an overcomer. When things come along and there's just things that hinder you or hurt you, you can be delivered. You can make it. You can be successful. My brothers and sisters, we can do all things through Christ because the strength comes from him. The ability, the word ability, those things come from God. Now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ever ask or think. That's the God I want to ride with. That's the God I want to be with. Let's keep it 100. Listen, I want to thank you for tuning in today to the Albert Chatmon Morning Show. Remember, it's all about us being born again, and it's definitely about us keeping it, being committed to him, and finally, it's about us keeping it real, being 100. Thank you for tuning in, and I pray that whatever you're going through, you'll find contentment in God, because through contentment, you'll find that you can be an overcomer and be delivered. And be flexible. Have the right perspective, because if you have the right perspective, you'll realize that no matter what you're going through, God can use that as a springboard to bring you out. And finally, remember, you must believe. You've got to believe, because we can do all things through Christ. Thank you, and I hope to see you next week.